The old man's hands were calloused and stained with grease as he pushed his rickety cart down Maple Street, the metal wheels squeaking with each revolution. No one gave him a second glance, just another invisible soul, collecting cardboard and aluminum cans to survive. But beneath that worn baseball cap and those threadbare clothes lived a secret that would soon change two lives forever. Thomas Chen had built his empire from nothing, transforming a single hardware store into a chain of 37 locations across 3 states. His net worth had crossed 8 figures 5 years ago, but the numbers meant little compared to the ache in his chest every time he thought about his daughter, Emily. At 26, she had her mother's gentle eyes and his own stubborn streak. She'd mentioned a boyfriend 3 months ago, a teacher named David Martinez, and Thomas had watched her face light up in ways he hadn't seen since her mother passed. But Thomas had learned something painful over the years. Wealth attracted masks. He'd seen it in business partners who smiled while plotting betrayal, in distant relatives who suddenly remembered his existence, in the parade of suitors who'd courted Emily with calculated charm. He needed to know if David was different. He needed to see the man's character when nothing was at stake, when there was nothing to gain. So Thomas became someone else entirely. The September morning was crisp when Thomas, dressed in layers of mismatched clothing and a jacket with a broken zipper, positioned himself outside Lincoln Elementary School. He'd done his research. David taught 5th grade here, arriving early each morning to prepare his classroom. Thomas waited by the dumpsters behind the building, sorting through his cart of collected recyclables with practiced movements. "Morning!" A cheerful voice cut through the quiet. Thomas looked up to see a young man in his late 20s, dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt, carrying a box of books. David Martinez had an open face, warm brown eyes, and a smile that seemed genuine. Too genuine, perhaps. Thomas grunted in response, turning back to his cart. "Those look heavy," David said, nodding at the bags of cans. "You okay managing all that?" "I manage," Thomas muttered, deliberately shuffling his feet and hunching his shoulders. David hesitated, then called out as he headed toward the building, "There's a coffee shop around the corner that throws out their day-old pastries every morning. If you get there around 10, they'll give them to you. Just mention that Mr. Martinez sent you." Thomas watched him go, suspicious. It was easy to be kind once, but David didn't stop at once. Over the following weeks, Thomas returned again and again, observing. He watched David greet him each morning without fail, never with pity, always with respect. He saw David bring him coffee on cold mornings. Not expensive coffee, just the basic kind from the teacher's lounge, offered casually as if sharing between equals. When it rained, David brought out a large trash bag to cover Thomas's cart. "For your collections," he'd said. "Keep them dry." Thomas began to leave his cart near the school more often, testing, waiting. He saw David's colleagues walk past without acknowledgement. He saw parents hurry by, pulling their children closer. But David always stopped. One October afternoon, Thomas witnessed something that made his chest tighten. David emerged from the building with a young boy who was crying, shirt torn, face streaked with tears. Another bullying incident, Thomas gathered from their conversation. David sat with the boy on the school steps for 40 minutes, missing his lunch break, just talking and listening. When the boy's mother arrived, a tired woman in a waitress uniform, David spent another 15 minutes speaking with her gently about resources and support. As David walked back toward the building, he noticed Thomas struggling to lift a heavy bag into his cart. "Here, let me help." David jogged over, taking one end of the bag. "You're gonna get dirty," Thomas protested weakly. "It's just a shirt." David smiled, hoisting the bag. "There, where to?" "Just in the cart is fine." Thomas studied the young man's face. "You missed your lunch." "Worth it. That kid needed someone to listen." David glanced back at the school. "You know, I became a teacher because someone believed in me when I had nothing. Figured I should pass it forward." Something in his voice struck Thomas as authentic. "You make good money as a teacher?" David laughed, but it wasn't bitter. "Enough to pay rent and buy groceries. Sometimes even enough to take my girlfriend somewhere nice. She's worth it. She's the best person I've ever met. Her father died when she was young." He paused, and Thomas's heart skipped. "Wait, no, sorry, I don't know why I said that. Her father's alive. She just doesn't see him much." He's always busy with work. The words hit Thomas like a physical blow. Emily had told David he was too busy. When had she stopped trying to reach him? Anyway, David continued, she teaches me every day what it means to be good without trying. To just see people. He looked at Thomas directly. Like seeing you, sir. Not just walking past like you're invisible. Most people do, Thomas said quietly. Most people are moving too fast. Missing what matters. David checked his watch. I should get back. But hey. He pulled out his wallet and offered a $20 bill. Thomas stiffened. I don't take charity. Not charity, payment. David pressed the money into his hand. You've been teaching me something these past weeks. You show up every day, work hard, don't complain. My students need to see that kind of perseverance. You've been my visual aid, he grinned. Consider it a consulting fee. Before Thomas could respond, David was heading back inside, turning once to wave. That evening, Thomas sat in his study, his real study, with its leather chairs and mahogany desk, staring at the $20 bill. This young man who could barely afford his own expenses had given money to someone he thought was destitute. But more than that, he'd given time, attention, and dignity. Thomas made a decision. The next morning, he arrived at the school in his Mercedes, wearing a tailored suit. He found David setting up his classroom and knocked on the open door. David turned, confused. Can I help you? Mr. Martinez, my name is Thomas Chen. The recognition took a moment, then David's eyes widened. You're Emily's father? And the scrap dealer you've been greeting every morning for the past 6 weeks. The color drained from David's face. He sank into his desk chair, processing. Oh my God, you were testing me. I was. Thomas stepped into the classroom. And I apologize for the deception. But I needed to know who you really were when nothing was at stake, when there was no benefit to your kindness. David's hands trembled slightly. Did I pass? You did more than pass. Thomas's voice grew thick. You restored my faith in something I thought I'd lost. You treated a stranger, someone society ignores with more dignity and compassion than most people show their peers. You gave from your own need. You saw a human being where others saw nothing. That's just basic decency, sir. No, Thomas shook his head firmly. It's character, and it's exactly what I want for my daughter. David stood slowly. Mr. Chen, I love Emily. I know I can't give her everything financially, not yet. But I promise you, I will spend every day trying to be worthy of her. You already are. Thomas extended his hand. And I'd like to make you a proposition. I've been too absent from Emily's life, too focused on building something that doesn't matter if I have no one to share it with. Help me fix that. Both of you. I want to be a real father again, a real family. David's eyes grew wet as he shook Thomas's hand. She talks about you all the time, you know. She misses you. Then let's fix that together. 3 months later, at Christmas dinner in Thomas's home, Emily laughed as David recounted the story of the scrap dealer for the relatives gathered. Around the table, she'd been shocked, then amused, then deeply moved by her father's test. You know what the crazy thing is? David said, his arm around Emily's shoulders. I almost didn't stop that first morning. I was running late. But something, I don't know, maybe your mom looking out for us made me turn around. Thomas raised his glass, his eyes shining, to the things we almost miss, and to seeing what matters. Around the table, glasses clinked. But the real gift was already given. A father who'd rediscovered his daughter, a young man who'd proven his worth, and the simple truth that kindness costs nothing but means everything. The rickety cart still sat in Thomas's garage, a reminder that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the content of our character when no one important is watching, because someone is always watching, and everyone is important.